What's going on, guys?
Nothing much. Just got in a call with a random person, for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, that guy sounds like a douchebag. Should probably block him.
Anyway, we are here. We wanted to interview you about working on SCP United.
Damn, how'd you find out? Supposed to be a
uh,
secret.
oh
I
no.
thought the tactic of avoiding them as much as possible would have not given me away.
No, 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 no. Everyone knows that the more you say no, the more you want it. That always holds up in court.
Oh no.
Anyway,
Well, yeah, when they say no, they actually mean yes.
yeah, clearly. When you said go away, stop trying to get me to leak stuff and steal our assets, what you really meant was, I would like to work on your team. It's a common misunderstanding. I'm very glad I got the
That's
hang
very
of that.
smart.
Isn't that right,
That's very
Tails?
smart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yes it is. So, anyway, this is Tails. He is the literary manager for the project, and I am the funny video manager, although technically project lead as well. Yeah, I think Tails is going to be the one asking questions, if you're fine with that, and then there's no obligation to answer in a way that you feel would, make it seem more positive or negative. You can just answer honestly.
Oh yeah, I'm very good at answering honestly about SCP Unity.
Awesome. Can't wait to be, can't wait to be depressed.
Oh boy.
It's got its highs, it's got its lows.
So I've had. I'm gonna just let Tails do the funny before I overtake everything.
All right.
Good luck, Tails.
All right. Well, to start us off, I think the first question, first and foremost, is who are you?
I am Error, otherwise known as Eternal Error, programmer for SCP Unity. Not sure what else to say on that one.
That's fair enough. How did you get into the studio?
So that's actually a very interesting story. So not recently, in the past, I got started coding through mods. First for Fallout, and then for SCP Containment Breach. I released a mod called SCP 914 Expansion Mod, and I was in contact with a animator known as Apocryphus, who previously worked on SCP Containment Breach, I believe. I think he got picked up from Zorner for SCP Unity, and he apparently put a good word in for me, and he approached me and asked, "Hey, Zorner's looking for people to help with his SCP Containment Breach in Unity. Would you like to help out?" I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And
Right.
so then the next day, I was pretty much put in the server with Zorner. He asked what I could do. I said anything from Photoshop to code. And then the first thing he had me do was work on UI. So I
Uh,
wanted to code. I got UI.
yeah. Guess that's just how how it be. So, how long did you actually work on SCP Unity for?
I was onboarded onto the team in, I believe it was either October or November of 2017.
Oh, really?
This was before the Discord server was even public.
I don't even think I knew what SCP Unity was back then.
Yeah, it was a very, very small, pretty much unheard of project. I heard of it once before because there was a runner-up to the project known as SCP Unreal, which was run by a guy named Aaron. And yeah, I thought before that I was actually going to help SCP Unreal out before I would help out SCP Unity, because I looked at SCP Unity on YouTube and it had like a really, like, I wasn't impressed. My first impression was the Tesla Gate video that I found, and I wasn't impressed by it.
I mean, I actually found out about SCP Unity ages ago because I wanted to do a similar thing, but I had no idea what I was doing. I just googled how to SCP in Unity or something. I dumb brain thought it would be a converter, and that's how I found out about the project. Yeah, Tesla Gate's pretty snazzy, but overall, it's good that you joined in.
I was one of the first big four. There were the first big four, which eventually got the founders role in the Discord. It was Zorner, Shadowscale, Zakanark, and me. We were basically the first four. There was also Apocryphus, but like he kind of dipped like before the founders role became a thing. So I guess there was the first five, but Apocryphus left like not long after.
Okay, it's the famous group
Yeah.
Big Hero 5. We've already heard quite a lot
Oh
about
yeah.
Shadowscale as
There,
well.
he was a large part of the story.
Yeah, but since like what, 2017? Yeah, November 2017. So you've like worked for a while. Would you say like Unity changed your life in any way?
It is where the majority of my programming skills actually come from. It's pretty much the thing that spoke to me that I wanted to be a software engineer. Before, I was actually thinking about being a mechanical engineer. In fact, I was actually pursuing a degree in mechanical engineering before starting in Unity. I started college in 2016, and then in my second year, I was onboarded onto Unity, and then I was like, oh, well, this might actually be something I want to do. So I am now a software engineer major.
Wow. You were like there since like the very beginning. So you would have seen it like grow from like this small little thing to something really huge. Did you ever like expect it to get as big as it did, even though it wasn't even like fully finished?
Mm, on the start, no. I thought it was just going to be just a little fan project. It did have a Patreon when I started. The Discord was closed to patrons when I joined, and they made about, I think it was about it was $100 per month. And I think our first hurdle was getting over the like 173 mark. That I remember just because there was a joke about, oh, every time we hit 173, it just goes back down. So we weren't even getting like the devs, like the devs that were working on it that weren't Zorner, we weren't even getting paid from Patreon until like half a year to a year after that. So I just thought it
Wow.
was going to be this is just going to be a little side project, you know. And the scope was much smaller. The scope was just literally take what containment breach is, move it to Unity.
I do have a quick
Okay.
question about the Patreon thing. So you said it
Mhm.
took a while to get paid. I mean, what did that funding go towards? Was it just Zona
At the
getting
start,
the
yeah,
money, or?
which I don't think anyone really had a problem with because like it was his project at the start, and then towards the like it took 6 months, I believe. That's probably a more realistic timetable. It took 6 months, and then at that point, it was just oh hey, that's a nice bonus, and it started out as like $50 because there wasn't enough to go around.
Yeah, I was only wondering because I've heard about the nightmares smaller studios have had moving to the industry version of Unity or whatever it is, paying for
Yeah.
each person. Good thing that wasn't related. Well, you worked on that 173 jokes. Did you actually, you were talking about how you struggled to get over the 173 hurdle and you made jokes about that, but did you have like a personal favorite SCP or was it always just a general thing?
Hmm. Well, my icon is currently 079, so I think that's going to be a good place to say where my favorite SCP is.
So you like 049, got it.
I've never really had a favorite, but I've always had like a big thing for computers and AI, and I was like, oh, 079. Yeah, 079 just really stuck out to me, but I can't put my finger on why.
Yeah, that works.
Way back then, yeah. How long did like the initial stages of the game? How long did that take to like create and come to fruition?
By the time I joined, version 0.5 was coming out. In fact, you can probably identify when I joined the team based on the version because as soon as I joined the team, SCP-330 was added to the game because 330 was one of the SCPs I made for my expansion mod.
Yeah, that was basically any information about you. It says you did most. It said you did most, if not all, of the code that Zona didn't touch.
Yep.
And 330. I don't know why they list it separately, but basically everywhere just it says you did all the code and
330 was
330.
actually the by the time I actually got engine access, 330 was already like halfway implemented because Zorner didn't really want anyone to touch the project until like he was certain that I guess he wanted someone else to. Especially with how new I
Yeah.
was, like I can see why he wouldn't want me touching the project immediately. So it took about 3 months.
Well, so, it's a good thing that trust issues
Yeah.
never became a problem. Uh, yeah, we should move on to the next
Yeah.
question.
Next question. Since moving over to Project Aethon, would you say that you either have the same or more creative freedom with your work as you did?
definitely, definitely more.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Um,
Okay. You sound kind of uncertain about that one. Took you a long time
it's
to
much
answer.
better. We have way more. Okay, so I'll add a little bit of context to that. Um, we did have a lot of creative control over what we were doing around version 0.6, 0.6.5, and a little bit in 0.7. Not as much as we have at Aethon now, but still quite a lot.
Well, from my understanding, I don't know if I'm misreading what people have said so far, but isn't Project Aethon more of a group thing working together rather than one person in
That's
charge telling
basically
everyone else what to
exactly
do?
it. We we make jokes about how our hierarchy is flat and it's the dev equivalent of communism. It doesn't help that a lot of our project code names are Russian, Vladimir being the most public one. But yeah, that's pretty much how our hierarchy is right now. No one person is effectively in charge of anything, or like in charge of everything. Everyone has their own like little things that they're delegated to. Like I, for example, host our repository, and I think Festive handles the Patreon, and Corvus handles. I think he also handles part of the Patreon, and he also handles our Trello. Yeah, the responsibilities are basically all spread around. Basically, it's more of like the more active members are the ones that are doing more, so it's like they have more responsibility, but anyone can jump in. Everyone has engine access. That's not something that happened in Unity. In Unity, the only people who had engine access were myself, Zorner, and Corvus, and Shackles, with a few that came in and then left. Like there was a Raiden Q, whatever. He had engine access for a little bit, but our concept artists didn't have engine access. Our modelers didn't have engine access. And now literally anyone has engine access. We got a graphics team user, we got Shackles, we got Corvus, and we got me. So anyone who's on the graphics team can access the engine through the graphics team user essentially.
All right.
So yeah.
Well, that's actually really good. You're all cooperating.
I'm personally always a fan of the open responsibility rather than
Oh
one
yeah.
person in
Sometimes you'll be
charge.
overbearing, like for the one person. Sometimes like bits of doubt, yada yada, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes it can collapse. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does work, but
And sometimes I can tell you to fire someone.
I guess one of the biggest differences between the one in charge versus the mini is everyone right now is paid the exact same. From the Patreon, our Patreon is making like 200 a month, so we all make about $20.
Oh.
Oh, cool. That's a pretty nice amount. Also, did I mention how nice your profile picture is? I'm a big fan of your username choice as well. Quite nifty even. Now, can we talk about Patreon deals? I'm not joking. So, out of curiosity, with Project Aethon, do you expand to plan? Do you plan to expand to other genres in the future, or sort of stick to the same? I don't know what SCP is. Horror, not fantasy. Is it fantasy? Horror? Whatever it
It
is, that
really
SCP
depends
style.
on like how our projects go. We are for 100% sure wanting to stick to SCP for the foreseeable future to build up like a studio name so that like people can actually get excited about something we work on. And then there might be a point where we're like, okay, the Creative Commons license is kind of screwing us. Maybe we can come up with our own IP. That has been discussed with no real like plans to capitalize on that at any specific point. But it has been talked about. We're just not sure where we're gonna go after this project. Who knows? I could come down with a cold and decide to cancel the whole thing tomorrow.
Yeah, that works too. Would love to slap a little cancelled thing just at the end. Hey, by the way, this project was cancelled about 5 minutes
It
after
took
ending
a
this interview.
great deal of effort on April Fools not to just make a joke saying, yeah, I sprained my ankle, Aethon's canceled. A lot of effort to not do that.
When you were working with SCP Unity, did you have much experience with Unity at that time?
None. Absolutely
None.
none. I've never even touched an engine outside of Blitz 3D or Creation or Gamebryo. Not even Unreal. No, not GDOT or whatever that is.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one. Just name clearly pops into my head. Don't know what that one's for. So you just started from scratch after you joined? I mean, did you follow tutorials? Did someone in there teach you, or?
Zorner pretty much like got me familiar with the engine and like his code. Basically, for the entire experience was him basically just teaching me the ropes, and that's pretty much the reason why he never got a second programmer other than me, was because he didn't want to go through that again. I was familiar with concepts of programming because I did mods and I did Java classes. That's what I first started coding in was Java. So I understood how to code, but it's more of just the nuances of Unity and the nuances of C Sharp and how they interacted with his code. I had not a clue. So in the first year, a lot of my code was actually basically secondhand Zorner code, because what would happen is I would write something, it'd not work. I'd ask him how to fix it. He'd tell me how to fix it, and then I'd fix it. So then, really, yes, I wrote the code, but I didn't really write the code. But yeah, no experience whatsoever with Unity.
I guess tying into that with the whole, never got a proper third developer, although didn't Corvus do some audio
Everyone
or
has
sound stuff?
actually, not everyone. There have been multiple people who have coded fair amount actually in the project. It's more of just that I was the only quote unquote dedicated programmer. There was Shackles. He did a lot of code related to animation, specifically with the gun that was going to be in 0.8. He did a lot of the code for that. And Corvus, the entire audio engine was basically written from the ground up by him. And there was also Radin. Radin, he was an animator, but he also wrote some code as well, specifically for 106. But that got scrapped eventually.
Well, what I was going to ask is, since you never got a third dedicated developer and it was sort of just you and him, did you have to work with other people in the project, or not really? Did you just keep to your duo?
Because I didn't just do programming. I was looking back on it. I mean, I would call myself almost like a janitor of sorts for the project because I never really handled like large scale projects or responsibilities. It was more of just, okay, this needs to get done, but no one really wants to do it. Do you want to do it? And that's what I ended up getting stuck doing. So I worked with Apuli, who was the UI the graphical asset designer. I worked with him. I designed the UI with him. He would make the assets. I would implement it for patron offices. Obviously, people would make models, and then I would have to import those models. But for basically making like systems in Unity, yeah, it was essentially just Zorner that I worked with.
Oh, all right. When you were working on Unity, what was probably like one of the hardest tasks for you to accomplish during your time?
As in like difficult to understand.
It would probably be a mix of a few, like what's the one that took a really long time, you didn't really understand well, or just something you feel if you think back to what you did, you just thought, I struggled with that one, or God, I would never want to do that again. Not the project as a whole, just the one
One
task.
task. Okay. Well, from a time standpoint, the quest system for 0.8, that took me 9 months. I would never want to do that again. But for things that like I actually struggled with understanding, probably the item system that I was helping Zorna write in the early days.
Oh, so that was back with the original
Uh, no,
inventory
it was
system.
replacing that inventory system. It was replacing the inventory system. The
Was that in 0.3 or 0.2?
No, it was so there was a drag and drop system that was implemented very early on before I even joined. And then we switched to a clicking system. The clicking system is the one that I implemented, and that was a pain in the ass because it was completely rewriting the code for that while also trying to keep a legacy compatibility with it. So it wasn't the entire system being written from scratch. It was just trying to interface it with the new UI, and that was a pain in the ass to work around.
I was only asking about versions because we've only recently gone through like most of the major versions, so you know we've seen lots of the big changes from inventory. I was just wondering which version it was. I'm not good with specifics, which is always lovely.
I'll be honest, I don't remember what version that was. That might have been 0.6.5. I couldn't be sure. Basically, whenever the tab menu got changed is when the system got changed.
You put like a lot of time in this project, obviously. But how do you personally feel about the game being left at version 0.7.9?
There's a few takes I have on that.
079, good number.
First take, from a hindsight perspective of like just the feeling I had up to that point when that project was being canceled, I was actually happy that it was getting canceled. Just because I wasn't exactly happy with the way things were going. From a standpoint of, I guess, monetary compensation, disappointed because we weren't able to keep the Patreon and just move that over to something else. I especially wanted to continue working on SCP Unity. Specifically, what I wanted to happen was I would want Zorner and Jallo to be the ones to step down, then have everyone take over the project and then continue up to a certain point and then translate to a new project. So I'm disappointed that that didn't happen.
So you just wanted it to continue under new management rather than they step down and it all cancels.
I was happy that new management was there. I was disappointed that we wouldn't be able to continue the project that I spent 5 years of my life on. Well, not five, more like Four.
I,
I'd say four.
I, I guess we're about to start going down the dark rabbit hole.
Yes, we are.
So, next question, once again, a nice, happy, positive one from what I've been hearing about the project. What aspects of the game, if any, did you have influence over?
Could you rephrase that question? Like, what did I add?
No, well, basically, what did you have control over, like, final say in the game? Or not final say, but did you have much of a say? You know, if you thought something should be different in the game?
Pre-version 0.7? Yes. Yes, I did.
I was just wondering how much influence you actually had, like, over the direction of the game, or...
By the end of the game, none. Absolutely none. Towards the beginning, near the middle, I had quite a lot actually. To the point where I would suggest an idea, or a radical idea change, and if a majority of the people thought that was a good idea, that's what we would go with. I could write my own systems. I could just, as long as it contributed to the game in a positive way. I got to decide what I got to work on. I got to decide some story elements. I could decide some UI elements. Basically, all that I pretty much had a good control over, especially environments. When I started doing environments, I had a insane degree of control over how the environments look, and pretty much every single time Zoner was like, yeah, that's great, keep that. It wasn't until after 0.7 that control slowly got stripped away, and it became less of a okay, do what you want kind of thing, and more this is what I need you to do, to the point where that's the contributing thing that actually led to me being unhappy with the project, was the fact that this control was slowly being stripped away.
You said you said you did a lot of the code in the game. Did you do anything outside of the coding in the studio, or was it just strictly coding?
Like I said, it was more of a janitor role. So I actually had my hands in a lot of fields. In fact, my title actually changed quite a lot. So I got onboarded wanting to be a programmer, but then got stuck doing UI design. The monitor that's in most of the monitors, it's the brown one with the tabs on the left with like email and stuff. Yeah,
Oh, yep.
that's the thing. That's my first thing I did for the project. That was literally the first thing I made. If I was going to design it again, I would do it way better, because I fell into the trap of asking everyone for their opinion and then forming the design based on everyone's opinion, which that's never the good way to go with designing something. Anyway, so I started with UI, then I got into code through 303 and no, not 303, 330 and 106. Coded the corrosion field that was left behind him. That was when that was first implemented, or at least re-implemented, I should say.
Actually, didn't it get redone?
Yeah, it did. I don't remember which version.
Did you do the new 106 AI or the original?
The one in between. There was a slight version change in between. So then I went into code, and then while I was doing code, then that's when we started doing patron offices. So then I started doing patron offices. That was almost pretty much me exclusively. Towards the end of the game, there was about 300, I believe. It was either 200 or 300 patron offices. I did like 90 or 190 or 290, whichever it was. There was basically 10 offices in the game I didn't do. So then after doing patron offices, there was UI again. When a pulley came on, I started designing the interface between the player and the actual UI elements. So that was the PDA inventory and the health bar, or when the health, like the HUD got completely redesigned. That was me. And then that's when Shadow Scale started doing less environments. So then I started doing environments because I already had environment design experience from patron offices. And so then I did programming, UI, and environmental design.
That is a
Yeah,
lot of stuff.
you did a lot of things.
It's
Yeah,
I can see why people would definitely be a bit sad about that project ending with all that stuff there.
Yeah, I was the role I gave myself in my mind was a jack of all trades, master of none kind of situation.
That's an
So
interesting role. I'd like to see it on your CV. After it closed, you mentioned this briefly before, but were there any plans to restart development after the whole thing went away? So I remember it was just suddenly removed, at least to the public eye, it was suddenly removed. Did developers contact each other and just say, hey, you want to continue working on it or salvage the code we have?
So the call, like the call to cancel it, came down from Zorner, and it was announced to us via a Discord call in the Unity server. It was everyone but two people was a part of that call. So it was Festive, Corvus, me, Camp, Shackles, and then I think it was Pixel Puffin and Punky. They were the ones who were not a part of this call. So it was pretty much everyone except those two and a Puli.
By the way, just random side note, they are the only two people I haven't spoken to about this interview. I did not realize that.
Yeah, Punky he's going to be kind of he's been very busy, so we haven't heard a whole lot from him. And Pixel, he's only recently got busy, so and then
Oh no, I just
yeah.
found it funny that I've reached out to all the people in the call. And
Yeah.
that's it.
So everyone was a part of that call, and then the news came down like hard, like yeah, this is where we're stopping. And in that call, I created the Aethon server. I then invited every member of the call, and then within 5 minutes, every member joined back to the new server. So this was within minutes. And then when that call with Zorner ended, we started our own call in the Aethon server, and we started brainstorming, okay, what are we going to do? None of those plans that we were talking about involved continuing SCP Unity, because in that call, it was pretty much a hard, yeah, you are not to continue development of SCP Unity. You are not even to use any ideas from SCP Unity.
Yeah, we heard before that apparently it was a registered company, and he basically insinuated legal action if you continued.
There was undertones of action should we not obey his decision.
It was he wasn't saying he would do it, but he had the option to.
Yes.
It was something within his
Yes,
power.
which there is a degree of uncertainty there, because I mean, there's what it's intellectual property. He doesn't own the SCP intellectual property, so it's questionable if he was able to do that. But we are not lawyers.
Kind of like the Andrew Duxon situation.
He has enough money for lawyers. We don't want to take the risk, so we just completely decided, okay, we're gonna wash our hands with Unity, and it's for the best, because looking back on it, hindsight, the project was a mess. It would have taken a lot of work to get that into a proper game that doesn't just resemble a walking simulator.
Yeah.
That was a large amount of pain.
Yeah.
So much pain. So much time.
During your time making SCP Unity, was there any highlights during like development or anything like that?
Pretty much everything pre 0.7. Or no, well, pre 0.7 releasing, I should say. There was I can't pick up any specific examples, but there was a very good friendly vibe among the staff in the versions leading up to 0.7's, or in the days leading up to 0.7's release, to where there was like a sense of brotherhood or something like that, to the point where like we played games together regularly. I would bother Zorner like almost every week about, hey, you got time for Stellaris? Let's play Stellaris, because that's like the one game he had that I also had that I was really passionate about, wanted him to play. We got like a few games in. Most of the development and like the learning, that was pretty good. A lot of jokes, a lot of memes.
It was overall just a great vibe just before that time, right? Just
It was a pretty good vibe.
yeah,
all
lots
things
of
considered.
mateship, lots of cooperation.
There was like some disagreements, there was some arguments, but that was
A part of development.
few and far between.
Yeah,
For the most part, it just felt really good to just be a part of something bigger.
That sounds really positive and happy, and that is a feeling I'm going to crush now by asking you about any lowlights, I guess.
Everything after 0.7's release.
Okay, that was very, very concise. Do you want to go into that at all?
I could. So basically, this is where I'm going to go into the little bit of the drama portion. Once Jallo Kavet became a prominent member of Zorner's life, is when there started becoming a lot of behavioral changes and a lot of mood changes, like tone changes in the server in general. And this is just something that just kept piling and piling on, with the worst possible point. Like the worst possible feeling I've had on the project was, I'm going to say, let me count the days, 24 days before project was canceled publicly, which was, I believe, on the 22nd or 23rd of January. So I think this was December 14th. December 14th, I had a very, very uncomfortable conversation with Zorner that completely destroyed my mood for the project to the point where that's it. I was done. I'm going to quit. I am going to quit this project of 4 years of my life because I am unhappy and I cannot take it anymore. So then there was just an entire month where I did absolutely nothing. I did not work a day.
Jeez, it must have been
I,
like terrible. It must have been like some call.
it wasn't even a call. It was just text chat.
Really?
Yeah, that's where all of these disagreements were in text chats. They were never in like especially there was actually very few calls after 0.7. Uh, the only calls we would have is like a meeting once every month or 2 months, and that's the only communication I would ever have with Zorner.
Not gonna do this, obviously, it's just interviews. But it really feels like it could be its own deep dive into what happened, because we haven't really heard a full story, but we keep hearing fragments of bits of story of what went wrong and what led up to the, I guess, the downfall of Unity.
Yeah,
There's pieces that are coming together slowly,
yeah.
but it does just sound like a perfect storm of things
It
happening.
was the perfect storm. I'm not going to say Jalo Cavet is the sole reason, because that would be disingenuous. That would be like looking to pass blame onto one person, which that wouldn't be fair. I'm going to say it is a collective fault. It is the fault of everyone who was involved in the development, really.
So development was fine, you went on until about 0.7 release, I guess, and that was when pressure started to pile on. There was, he was getting a bit less, Zona was getting a bit less interested in the project, but there was more pressure, more time, more people. I can't remember quite what happened. Was it Shadowscale got fired or relieved, or decided to leave? And that's when he tried to take over the art direction. You got all the art people, 3D modelers trying to push for to stay to the old one, but he wants to go to this new technical thing. He gets a girlfriend in his life, and there's some manipulation stuff that goes on. People aren't happy, and overall, you just get all the different sections of the group coming together to sort of go against this one person who's basically done with the project already.
That's close. Yeah, that's pretty close.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, fun times. I probably already told the story to everyone in the staff chat at least. I've told it separately to different people like, at least 5 or 6 times in its entirety, and it was a 30-minute story. So yeah, I mean, I only have my personal part of that story, but it's the personal part of my story pretty much resulted in what I would describe as the fall of Unity because it was my negative feeling after that conversation that I then shared with it was then Corvus, which this kind of explains the environment we were in. I was actually scared to tell Corvus I was unhappy because I was scared he might be in contact with Jallo, and who knows, maybe he'll tell Jallo and Jallo will tell Zorner and Zorner will just fire me right then and there.
That's the reason we've been trying to talk to people that covered all the different areas, so at the moment, most of the angle we have is design, and it sounds like I guess you would be in the higher up area because they were talking about like tension and things going on in the higher up area, and then it was Shadowscale that left. But I guess you would have the perspective of the higher up people on what was going
Pretty
on.
much. I was pretty much the lowest ranking higher up, essentially.
I would say weren't you and Corvus sort of similar in terms of workload or
Yes.
rank?
Yes. Except because Corvus had an entire audio system like under his control, he was given a lot more attention, I guess. He got a lot more degree of control. He got a lot more input. So I was pretty much relegated to you do this now. And I was like, okay, I guess I do. I guess this is fine. I guess I'll do this now. To the point where I was left out of critical story elements in 0.8, where Corvus was included. So
Well, 0.8. That would be the lighting rework. Designers certainly have a few opinions about that one. How did you feel, I guess, about 0.8 overall?
the idea had potential. Every idea we had potential. If we stuck to the idea, it would have been fine. If we were allowed our own input, that would have been fine. It's just that the scope kept creeping. We got less and less control over our individual areas. We got less and less control over the larger picture, and it became unmanageable. There was no way that was ever going to get done.
Well, I guess I have two last questions then. The first being, if you'd had control and say over the project, what would you have wanted 0.8 to be?
I would say it would have just been the warehouse, the gun, maybe some part of 049 comes in, and that would be it. I would say it would probably even be better if we replaced the warehouse and 939 with the 049 section, because that would have given us a very good point to end as like a demo and put that on something like Kickstarter and maybe get like actual funding to turn it into an actual game, or that would have also put it at a good point to drop if we decided to do something else. And everyone wanted 04. I mean, everyone wanted 096, but fuck 096.
I mean, I somehow couldn't even find 939. I guess it makes sense. A lot of stuff randomly removed.
Yeah.
Earlier before, you mentioned in the point 8 update, you mentioned like there being a gun. What was like the if it was a gun, like what would be the utility of it? Like what was the plans for it?
Shotgun, go burr. That was it. That's it. Zorner played Doom. Zorner liked Doom. Zorner liked shotgun from Doom. Zorner want gun in game. Zorner Doom 939. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
We had early days we had like really big plans for guns, but like the idea was guns weren't something you wanted to use. They were things that you should only use as a last resort. There were ideas like how using guns would be pretty much pointless on anything except like 939 or 049's infected, and if anything, it would just make entities mad and come at you more aggressively, or they would hone in on your location faster. And using a gun against the MTF would be all but suicide, because your gun would do nothing to you. They are highly trained, and they would just gun you down. So, gun was supposed to be a very limited utility.
Well, I did say last two questions, but that random alt and stumble I had before was me remembering one more. So it's more about the features, because in 0.79 I wasn't able to find like a dedicated 939 area outside of the one broken sequence with like a little chamber and 939 comes out of a vent. But I do remember at some point in history, there was a full-on 939 chamber you had to walk through, and I was just wondering, for features that were being updated, why were they removed for several updates before the new ones were added? Why not keep the old versions of just features in general?
I don't remember the specific reason why the 939 warehouse was removed.
I mean, there's stuff like 1499, or I've just blanked on every other thing in my head, but there were things.
1499 has a very clear reason why it was removed and why it was pretty much never added back. It effectively made 106 useless. And we wanted to try to find a way to make it where it couldn't do that. So we decided, okay, we can cut it from the game now, and we can dedicate an update to it to add it back and give it a much grander. This is where like scope creep came in. The plan for 1499 would have been to have it transported to a not infinite world, but instead be like a little map, its own map, in like that was like a small city or something like that. And then there would like be quest things to do there, like items to find, things to interact with, and it would be like
So it'd basically be its own little subplot.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's when we wanted to add back 1499. We'd have new entities, new monsters, things like that, and that just never happened. The warehouse, I remember there being a problem with there was sentiment that it was added too early, because it was supposed to be filled with this gas, and then you'd need to go to this auxiliary containment place to activate that, and then go through 939. And there was just a lot of opinions that the area could have been done much better. So then that's when Shadowscale started working on his version of the warehouse that would have been added in 0.7 ish, I believe. But he was unhappy that 939 was being removed from the game, so he decided to work on a quote unquote mod for Unity that would have added that, little 939 area that is currently the only 939 area in the game.
And it's broken.
Then that got made into the final version of the game, and then because that was out, we pretty much decided, well, 939 isn't a priority right now. So that got pushed back, and then eventually Shadowscale got fired, so we then had to start over from scratch.
Yeah. That's when the design team started to have a lot of issues.
Yeah, and then after 0.7, Zorner wanted something big for 0.8. He specifically said that he wanted a gun to basically show up Ascension or like Fragmented Minds. He was like, "Oh yeah, imagine like a really good gun system in Containment or in Unity. No one is expecting us to have a really good gun system, so let's just add it for 0.8."
I remember on 14.9.9 there was a note or something that said they took the 14.9.9 or something like that, something to signify that you couldn't get to 14.9.9, and that was removed. And also, 939 doesn't work in the latest version. Was that sort of a rush thing to just get stuff ready and out for 0.79 so you could just be done with it?
What
or?
specifically doesn't work for 939?
The AI.
Oh, you mean how it just gets stuck?
No, it doesn't get stuck, it just does not work. It walks back and forth in the room and it doesn't detect the player.
That sounds like a bug that shouldn't exist, because it does work in previous versions of the game.
It's, we're doing a separate video on a full playthrough, and we had 939 and it came out into the room, there was the music, it was really tense. And we were just hiding in the room with the glass door, glass window, and I was trying to figure out how I could bait it into the room, and then I realized it wasn't reacting, I walked up and it just pushed me out the way. It just... I tried downloading it again, in case it was a corrupt file.
That is unfortunate. There's no way that's the final version of the game. Oh, no.
Yeah, no, I was just asking about, I mean, the other stuff isn't really as major, it would be something like bugging through a chair, but I was just wondering if that was a missed bug or a merge issue, or if it was just rushing it out.
So 939 previously did work in that area where it could chase you. It could chase you pretty much everywhere.
I played in versions where it did, that's why I had so much fear in 0.79.
So it's likely that the final version of the game is what broke it, and the final version of the game was pretty much just, okay, let's just get this out, because this was when everyone was getting burned out with everything. The note itself being removed from 1499, so that note was originally added because we wanted 1499 to be a reward for the warehouse, Shadowscale's warehouse. So when that was being worked on, so we wanted 1499 to be a reward for the warehouse. So it was actually not intended to be cut from the game for very long. It was actually supposed to just be one version where it would be one version where 1499 and 939 didn't appear in the game.
I'm gonna be honest, I saw the old note and I thought it was a direct I thought it was sort of hinting at a fourth wall break, so just saying, hey, 1499 isn't in game yet.
That was
and
the
then
original
it got
point.
removed in
That was the original point.
In 0.79, the main driving force, because we couldn't really find a solid story, was trying to get the keycard for 1499 until it just abruptly ended.
Yeah. So I actually removed that note in 0.8 because so that the note was originally put there as a, yeah, come back later, it's not in this version. When that version then never happened, it became, well, people are going to think that this card is obtainable. I'm going to remove this note because it completely disregarded my then design philosophy for notes, because I implemented the quest systems for 1762, 131, and the security office. Every note that was placed on like a wall or something had a purpose. So the note in the security office that says go to the sky room, that's a reason. The little note that's on the monitor in the security containment cell, whatever it is, secure containment, that had a purpose.
I just found it funny because, I've played through Unity countless times. I don't study it, it's not some addiction, I don't write down everything I've noticed, but I like to think that I try to appreciate every detail that any developer, any modeler, when they work on it, they would be proud. And I want to take in, everything. So, there's not really a proper reason, but So I want to appreciate the game from the development standpoint as well. But for some reason, that note just stood out weirdly to me. It just seemed like such a... I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's just an odd thing.
Shadowscale is the one who wrote the note, and that's pretty much the first like actual directional note in the game. So that's pretty much the reason why I removed it in 0.8 was because it completely violated my note design philosophy. On the subject of notes, there added in 0.7 there is an Easter egg with 2 of the notes. They're very obscure Easter eggs, but that's just a little note I wanted to put in there for you. Good luck finding it.
We're gonna have to find him.
Yeah, we're gonna spend another 2.5
I
hours
will
there.
narrow it down. The 2 notes. It's most definitely a note you've seen before, and it is the Easter egg is specifically a reference to something.
I know there was, I don't know if this was unrelated, I know there was something that was referencing containment breach on a board, but I assume that was a placeholder.
Yes. I don't remember specifically which one you're talking about, but yes.
Yeah, there was one that referenced the original voice lines from the PA system in containment breach at the start.
Which voice lines?
It was discussing the things that the guards or the PA system would mention at the start of the game. I can't quite remember. It was in the large Patreon office room on the board.
Yeah, that was probably a reference to, or that was probably a placeholder. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Well, unless, well, I guess I'll ask first. Is there anything you want to say personally that you want to get out there, or I would say ask, but you know, there's not really much you can interview us about.
Let's see. Nothing specifically comes to mind, but if you got any questions about anything, feel free to ask, and I'll probably answer.
Actually, I do have one. I have one very important one. Pretty sure Tails is going to see this one coming a mile
I
away.
already see it coming.
Why is 914 the way it is?
Explain like why it is. Like, what do you mean why it is? Like, there's a lot of aspects about why it is.
It was, how do I put this? In the playthrough we did like a full recorded playthrough of 079. 079 of 0.79. 0.7.9. And about 50 minutes to an hour of that is taken up with 914 because there's stuff like unknown canisters or items becoming scrap, or if there's something that clips the output chamber slightly, it would... was 914 unfinished?
914 was completely unfinished. Pretty much everything in the game that exists as an entity is unfinished. 131 is unfinished. I guess 1762, I guess it's technically finished, but there were plans to have
I
them.
am so glad that I can go to 914 and just look at it and think that is unfinished.
Yeah, 914, that was... that was supposed to be one of my responsibilities. I wanted there to be a 914 update. Like, just
I mean, no offense, but 914 was one of the most painful experiences.
I did basically nothing for 914. The code for 914 I did not touch. There was supposed to be an update where I would update it to make it feel better, like Containment Breach. In fact, that's one of the earliest things decided I wanted to do, because, spoilers, I worked on the 914 expansion mod. 914 is one of my favorite SCPs, and it is shit in Unity.
You're oh no, you're spoiling the game. No, I can't have spoilers for the next update of Unity. Whatever am I going to do?
I was supposed to update it to make it better. The most I did for 914 was just implement the canister project, the canister quest. Items becoming scrap, that's a placeholder. Basically, anytime something becomes scrap, it's because a recipe for it does not exist. That's it. So the scrap itself is a placeholder.
This isn't even a question, but the number of times a canister rolled through the input chamber door, saw only one item when I was right near the end and I had to restart, or there was something caught in the chamber, on the output chamber, and it turned to scrap. Tails was the only one that got entertainment from that because of 650.
Yeah.
I'm still proud about I'm still proud about the puzzle though, because that was...
I still hate 650. I mean, I like it. It's really well executed, but it terrifies me. Well, it doesn't terrify me. I think it looks nice and happy, but it jump scares me.
650 was another one I worked on.
There's no audio cue. There's no sounds. It doesn't do anything, but it
There's a
jump scared
slight
me.
audio cue. If you listen, I don't know if it was added to 0.8 or if it was removed, or I just remember at some point there was if you look at it, it makes the sound the cue you see, or the not cue you see, the cue you sound when you first see it, it plays very muffled when you look at it. It's just very quiet.
I didn't. I had the sound up. I did not hear that in 0.7.9.
It was either removed or it was added to 0.8. I don't remember which.
Damn. Oh, okay. Well, that was probably the thing Tails enjoyed most. I assume.
Yeah, I watched him just be just just flinch every time 650 came along.
I had my hands on pretty much every SCP.
Sorry for dragging this out so much, but I have another personal
Oh,
question.
feel free to ask as many questions as you want because I'm completely free.
I love SCP Unity. It was what inspired me to get into music composition for games because it was really impressive. It was also what made me start working on my own containment breach mods originally. But that was entirely unrelated. I have no clue why I said that. But are there triggering mechanics for 178, or is it just a timer? Because when we were playing through, we genuinely didn't understand. I tried looking away from them, to quote-unquote not acknowledge them. I walked around them, through them, avoided them entirely, but they just seemed to attack at random.
So 178 attacks based on a timer. When you get close to it, the screen gets like a different color, and then you aggro it, and then there's no way to unaggro it. So it's by getting close to them is how it trigger them, and you have to stay close to them for like I think it's a second or maybe it's 2 seconds.
Oh, so basically, don't wear the
Yeah,
glasses.
there was no reason to wear the glasses. That was actually supposed to be one of the things I fixed with 914. I was supposed to give you a reason to wear glasses with 914.
Well, I guess, did you touch 714 at all?
714. Yes.
Because I thought it was supposed to protect or do something, and I ended up wearing it, and it just killed me.
I edited it slightly, but that was one of the ones Zorner wrote.
So did that have any intentions, any
Oh
plans or
yeah,
something
it was
to do, or was
supposed
it
to
just...
be used for anything that would have had any kind of mimetic effect. It was previously used against 012 when that was still in the game, but after 012 got removed, there was absolutely no point to ever have the ring ever.
do you know why O12 was removed?
It was bad. It was boring. It was coded bad. It had fucking grape jelly as the blood screen effect whenever you cut yourself, and Zorner decided that the amount of work that would have taken to make it good was unreasonable, so he just got rid of it. I did have a plan to make it better, but that also never happened.
Yeah, I think Containment Breach is probably one of the few okay... Oh no, Ultimate Edition was one of the few okay executions.
What happens with that?
Oh, there's just some important items you need to get in the room, and you have to try resist it, obviously, and get the items. But it doesn't actually serve any function. It's just sort of...
It kind of has a use in my mod.
You've got severed hands for DNA.
Yeah, well, the severed hands. If you put the severed hands in 914, you get instances of 447, and then 447 can be used to enhance basically any item. So yeah, but my plan was to have for 012 to have a hidden property that the researchers didn't know about, but an AI like 079 did know about, which was basically if its music is played in vicinity to the actual item while it isn't being contained, then the effects of the bad composition are applied to everyone who hears it. So basically, you would have a site-wide mimetic hazard that plays at the discretion of 079 that you would then have to contend with. Now, for the most part, it would just be disruptive. It wouldn't be lethal, but when you stop being able to...
Because the effect itself is just wanting to complete 012, so I don't think you just open yourself up on the floor thinking, yes, 012, only 5 kilometers away.
You would start moving towards 012, so it would start inhibiting your ability to move, which again, is just mostly disruptive. But if you're trying to get away from 106 or 173, that's lethal. So then you would get to this idea to where, well, first, anytime you heard any sound over the intercom, your first reaction would be to put on the Jade Ring so it wouldn't fuck you. But yeah, that idea just never came to fruition because it was too much work just to get. And with random generation, oh man, that would have been a nightmare to figure out the path to 012 from where you're currently standing. I am of the opinion that the game should never have been random generation, especially not in the later versions.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it wasn't. I didn't even realize it was random.
In the final version of the game, 0.7, 0.7 was an update. One of the biggest features was a new world gen system to complement the core room. This world gen system took up a majority of Zorner's time on the update, caused a bug that then caused the game to be delayed by 4 months. And the final result, the final implementation, the final execution of the world gen is effectively making the game no longer random because you still have zones that you can expect to find things. The zones are still on the same floors, or the clusters, they're called clusters. Yeah, the clusters are still on the same floors. The only thing that's really different is what portion of the core room they're located in. So, one cluster could be north, one cluster could be west, and then the rooms that connect them, the hallways that connect them, those are random. But really, that's not that random because it'll take the same shape effectively.
I remember. I don't know how to say the name properly, but Aerospice.
Yes,
They
that's
were talking
correct.
about wanting the randomized item system.
Yeah, it was actually that's the system I was supposed to be working on for 0.8. Actually, that's the system I wanted to make for 0.8. The idea I mostly got from Fallout 4 because it has a system where you place an item like a highlighted item on a map, and then that item grabs from a list, a loot list specifically, to decide what should be there at runtime. So the idea I was going to take that was going to be, let's say this actually started with the health kit. When I implemented the health kit, I thought, well, it's kind of stupid that it just opens up and the item drops immediately out. There could be a better way to do this. So I thought, well, what about having a grid of items that could then be randomly assigned? And then I thought, well, if we're just having a grid of items to be randomly assigned, we could also put this in lockers. We could put this in drawers. We could put this in any kind of container that would have an item. Well, we're already writing a system to randomly assign items in a physical location. This can be scaled up to randomly assign props in a room. So then not only are the items in the containers randomized, but the placement of the items themselves in the room, the props, those are also randomized to where the room looks different every time for every iteration.
I know you weren't too happy with the project near the end, after 0.7, and I know quite a few people aren't, and it is such a shame because not really through calls, but through messages as well, just talking about what people wanted to do and what was planned and what they were working on. If there'd just been freedom and they'd I just blanked on his name for no reason. Mr. Unity, the person who owned Zorna. If he'd just sort of stepped back and let other people take control, it would have been. I mean, Unity is already a staple in the SCP community, but it probably
It would have been so
would have
much better.
become the new containment breach.
It would have been so much better. The problem, my problem, was basically that was a lack of I guess control. I guess I'll just go into this part. The final straw for me, the absolute final straw, because there was a conversation that I've had with Zorner multiple times, and every single time we had this conversation, I felt like it was resolved, and then it was resolved for a week, and then after that, it came back. And each time this happened, it only made me feel worse from that point onward. Because it's like, well, every time I talk about it, it doesn't get fixed. And if anything, it makes it worse. So the final straw was I had a conversation with Zorner about not feeling like I had enough agency in what I did, that I felt like I was just the hired help and that nothing I did on the project mattered. So we had a conversation that ended with me feeling positive about things. And then 2 days later, I noticed one of the rooms that I spent a lot of time designing was inexplicitly changed without my knowledge, and I just questioned why. I questioned why did this room that I worked on completely change for no reason. And the answer I got was, well, we decided that the game is too big for one person to do the environments on. So Jallo, you and I will be doing the environments. Well, can I still edit the rooms that you design so they can look nicer? Because I'll be honest, the room that got changed 131, it was for the worse. It looked terrible. Desks were put in the middle of the room. There was so much wasted space. Items were clipping. Items were missing. And some items had no collision. And I was like, okay, well, can I at least make it better? Because I designed 200 plus patron offices, my design philosophy was that of detail. I had an eye for detail. I did things like add little pens behind desks, because when you're working, you might lose a pen behind a desk and not find it. Little things like that, and I would spend hours on these things. This room looked like it was done in 30 minutes. The answer I got was, no, we don't want people stepping on each other's work and changing it. Well, isn't that very funny?
How do you feel? Like, the final public announcement was that Zorna had a hospital trip, was feeling a bit stressed, and just decided to call off Unity to help his mind. And the second part of this is basically everywhere online lists people as being fired or released for unknown reasons. It's all just Zorna wanted to manage stress, and everyone else was released for unknown reasons. It's just how you feel. Because I mean, like, no, basically none of this. As far as I've been looking into SCP Unity to prepare for this, I hadn't heard anything about, what was going on, people getting fired over disagreements, and just the general, what was going on after 0.7.
So from 0.7 up to the game's canceling, I felt absolutely miserable. I'm not going to say depressed because that's a very strong word, but I was no longer happy working for the project. Because I spent most of my time on the project, it felt like most of my day wasn't happy. Um, I wasn't depressed. I just didn't like my working environment. And then after 0.8 got canceled, actually in the call where 0.8 got canceled, certain people were upset. Like they were like their voice was physically shaking. Like they were like obviously they were on the verge of just like breaking down. I was angry. I was pretty much like, "What the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me?" And then I was pretty much the one that was mad. I was the one that started the conversation of, "Okay, what the hell does this even mean? What is going to happen? What's with this? What's with that?" I was pretty much calling them out on their bullshit effectively. And so I was pretty mad, especially because this was pretty much after the conversation that I had with Zorner. So yeah, I was very heated. And then after the news, and after I started talking with the other developers, and after we came up with a plan, and after we started working on that plan and formed this project, I'm happy. I discussed with the other developers, and pretty much the day after the project got canceled, I can quote myself saying that I said, "This is the happiest I've been in over a year." This was the day after the thing that occupied 4 years of my life got canceled, and for those 4 years no longer mattered, and I was the happiest I've ever been in that time span because I was just happy to work on something without Zorner. That's so mean to say, but he in my mind he was the problem. Him and Jallo, they were the problem. They were the things that were effectively making me miserable, and now they're gone. I can't be happier. Sure, I have to start over from scratch. Sure, we have a lot to work on. Sure, I'm not making as much money now, but at least I have a project that I can say with 100% certainty that I matter on. That my voice matters, that we can actually make something good, and the people that after the game got canceled, there was, or actually no, before the game got canceled, there was no communication from any of the other devs. It was pretty much straight from that dev to Zorner, and there was basically no communication. There was slight communication, like Corvus, Festive, and I, we were watching shows like once every 2 weeks or so, but that was pretty small comparatively. Now we have calls pretty much every day talking about all aspects of our lives, and we haven't been closer. This was a good change, like personally for me.
Yeah, I was only asking because, yeah, as I said, I was reading into this, and I kept seeing, time after time again, just quoting directly, "It is not known why they were removed from the team." And, yeah, it's just sad, I guess.
And the reason why the game was canceled, I'm still going to say is bullshit. I don't have a specific thing in mind of what actually caused the game to get canceled. I don't have any proof that it was
Yeah,
bullshit. That
but
it's
no,
bullshit.
he wanted to manage his stress, and everyone else was removed for unknown reasons.
Yeah.
Sorry that happened to you.
Oh, I'm. Don't be. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this was actually more positive than I'd expected.
Yeah.
After hearing what other people have said in DMs and calls. Yeah, thank you for your time,
No
I
problem.
guess, interview.
Oh yeah, no, thank you a lot. It's really appreciated.
Oh, Tails, you're here.
Sorry, I've just been dead the whole time.
Unity was always a major part of basically what got me into most of the hobbies I have now in terms of design, so
Yeah, I completely feel
I
that.
think I have an uncomfortable number of questions that I'm going to keep to myself.
Please feel free. I have all night, really.
Maybe after, when I'm not recording for the project that I need to edit for, but
Okay, that's fair enough.
yeah. But is there anything personally, links, YouTube channels, websites that you want me to
I
slap
am.
on screen, put in description?
I'm effectively a ghost, and the only thing that really matters on anything I do online is Project Aethon. That is
Cool.
where
Which
all.
cemetery should I address it to?
What?
It's it's a hilarious joke that you only understand if you have a bad sense of humor. Anyway, I'm going to end the recording, I think.